Hello and welcome to Understanding Your Customers' Problems, an HP Learning Initiative for Entrepreneurs presented by Diana Kander and Justin Wilcox. My name is Diana Kander. I am a refugee from the Soviet Union, a 9-time entrepreneur who has started and sold a number of ventures and definitely encountered my fair share of failures. And I've spent the last couple of years studying hundreds of entrepreneurs trying to figure out what separated the ones that were habitually successful from the ones that just couldn't get any venture off the ground. So I'm really excited to talk to you about today, and here's Justin.
Hey, Diana. Thank you very much for connecting us and introing me. My name is Justin Wilcox. I am the founder of Customer Development Labs. I'm a former developer turned entrepreneur, turned failed entrepreneur, turned successful entrepreneur, turned teacher, and now I really have a ton of passion around helping other people understand how to apply some of these lean startup principles that we've been playing around with for the last couple of years. So with that in mind, are you ready? You want to just dive in, Diana?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Well, yeah, there you go.
So we're here today to talk about how to significantly increase your odds of launching a new product or service. So the statistics are pretty scary. The overwhelming majority of startups and new initiatives fail. Even startups that are funded by outside investors, it's the cream of the startup crop, they fail a staggering 75% of the time. So what causes this failure? First, I'm going to tell you what doesn't cause startups to fail. They don't fail because the founders lacked passion or a willingness to work hard. They don't fail because the founders refused to risk their life savings or because nobody was willing to invest in them. Startups don't fail because founders couldn't build the software or the product necessary. Truthfully, most real entrepreneurs, successful or otherwise, are very passionate, hardworking dreamers who will risk everything, try anything to make their startup a success. I think that's why Justin and I love working with entrepreneurs. They're great people who are oftentimes pushing flawed ideas for which nobody was ever going to be a paying customer. Startups fail because their founders figure out that the idea isn't good enough, that nobody actually wanted it, only after it's too late to make it better, after they've already run out of money. Seriously, it's that simple. But why does this happen? How is it possible that with so many available resources and how-to guides from successful entrepreneurs and investors, that so few individuals are able to actually find success? And what can you do to significantly decrease your chances of failure, or even an idea that you want to implement in an existing job? That's what we're going to talk about today. So the first thing you need to understand is that startups are about finding customers, not building products. Let me be perfectly clear. No entrepreneur fails because they couldn't build their product. It's just too easy these days to build the thing that you set out to create. They fail because nobody actually wanted to buy what they built. Here's how a startup typically works. So first, an entrepreneur gets an idea, and their mind starts racing with all the possibilities of what it could turn into, the impact it could have on the world, all the money they could make from it. And then they get working on actually building the idea. They spend a lot of time and money trying to build the most comprehensive version, rarely showing it to anybody because they want it to be perfect before anybody actually sees it. First impressions are everything. Then they brand the idea. They develop a catchy name and a logo. They purchase a domain, build a website. They create their marketing materials. This has to look professional, they tell themselves. And finally, they go out looking for customers. And more often than not, they strike out big time, causing them to realize that something is wrong with the initial idea. So they revisit the idea stage all over again and start brainstorming about how to make the idea better. And then they repeat steps 1 through 4 over and over again, spending a lot of time and money in the process without actually making any forward progress. This is the startup loop of despair, and it can last anywhere from a few months to a few years, all before the business generates any substantive revenue. Let me show you what happens when entrepreneurs follow this traditional approach. So this is a company that I love to use as an example. It's called Elephant Chat, and it was a company that presented on a U.S. TV show called Shark Tank, where entrepreneurs come and pitch their ideas to investors. And the idea is a way to help couples have more productive discussions about things that are bothering them. So this box has a lid on it, and when one spouse is upset at the other for any reason, what they do is remove the lid, as you can see, the solid lid, to reveal the elephant in the glass case, and then the other spouse is supposed to know when they come home and see the elephant is out of the case that something is wrong and that their significant other has something very important that they want to discuss with them. Okay? So this couple came up with this idea. It helped them in their marriage, and then they went out and raised over $100,000 from investors, mostly family and friends, and spent the money to build the products. And when they went on Shark Tank and were very excited about what they had built and they had spent this $100,000, they were ridiculed by the judges. They were ridiculed because they had spent $100,000 and had no sales to show for it, and they didn't really understand who their customer was. They were just obsessed with exactly how beautiful the box was and how heavy the metal top was, and not even close to as obsessed about who exactly was going to purchase these things, because in their mind, it was literally every couple on earth could benefit from this product. And, you know, it doesn't really matter how the product is built. Wouldn't it have saved them $100,000 to figure out whether customers would buy a much simpler product? Like, before they ordered 10,000 of these beautiful boxes, they could have done something very, very simple to figure out if the idea was good enough. Unfortunately, today this company is dead. The product is no longer for sale because this entrepreneur couple followed the startup loop of despair. Idea, building this beautiful thing, spending $100,000, creating this beautiful branding around it, and then failing to actually find customers. But successful entrepreneurs know that the startup loop of despair is completely avoidable. They know that once you come up with a great idea, the very next step should be to find potential customers and determine if your product is even worth building. Finding customers before building your product is going to guarantee that you're going to build a product people actually want by figuring out which features and benefits are the most valuable to them. Above all, it's going to mean that your startup is actually going to generate revenue. Okay, idea number 2. People don't buy products or services. They buy solutions to their problems. People don't go to the store looking for features and benefits. When I go to Home Depot, I'm not really sure what kind of tools I need. I know that I have a leaky sink, and I'm looking for something to fix it. Now, I've been told that a crescent wrench is a really good way to fix a leaky sink. But if I walked into Home Depot and somebody was standing by the entrance trying to sell me a crescent wrench, saying, "Get your crescent wrench here. They're 30%, heavier duty and 20% cheaper," I wouldn't even know to listen to them. They would be speaking a completely different language, and I wouldn't know that it was applicable to me. So you have to phrase your product in a way that solves the problem. Don't worry about what it is. Think about what it does. So here's the trick. Not every problem will do. The problem has to be serious enough that people actually want to solve that problem. So there are 2 kinds of problems. One that sounds like a problem, and one that people will actually pay money to solve. So let's dive deeper and figure those 2 out. So the first type of problem I call a headache. So, you've had headaches. It's just a minor inconvenience that maybe you take some medicine to cure, but probably you don't, and it just goes away on its own. So this is my dog, Winston. Very, very handsome fella, and I take him on a lot of walks. And one of my least favorite things about owning a dog is that when I take him on walks, he goes to the bathroom, and I have to pick it up. So I have to walk around with these plastic bags that I get from the grocery store, and whenever he goes, I have to put my hand in one of those bags and then, use that to pick up the poop, and it's disgusting. And if somebody were to ask me, is this a problem? I would say, yeah, absolutely. It is the worst part about owning a dog. I wish I didn't have to do that. I wish somebody would fix this problem for me. But then if they asked me, well, have you ever gone online and looked for any products that can solve this problem for you or spent any money buying any of those products? I would say, you know what, I haven't even gone on the internet and looked. I mean, these things are hilarious, right? The poo trap. I mean, clearly a product in search of a problem, because I would never put that on my dog. People would think I was weird if I walked around with a dog with that on them. So this is a headache problem. It sounds like a problem, but I've never actually taken any steps in order to solve it. So it's kind of like a false seeming problem, one that I don't actually care about solving. Now, the other kind of problem is a migraine problem. So if you've never had a migraine before, they're quite serious. They cause sensitivity to light. People aren't able to see. They get extreme nausea. Sometimes they lose the ability to see at all or to hear. I mean, this is pretty intense. And the kinds of things that people will go to, the lengths that they'll go to in order to cure migraines or even to address them are pretty extreme. So they take really expensive medication. They get Botox, acupuncture, and sometimes even brain surgery. I mean, something has to be pretty serious in order for you to get brain surgery in order to address it, right? So let's go back to my dog Winston. So about a year and a half ago, my husband and I had our first son. And before that, for about 10 years, Winston was the baby of the family. So he was very used to being treated that way. And once we had our son, he became very, very anxious and quite depressed that there was a human baby that had replaced him. So Winston was very upset, and he would walk around the house crying all day long. And he would go outside and bark for 45 minutes in a row, and we would be unable to call him back into the house like we had before. So we've tried everything. We've taken him on extra long walks. When our son's asleep, we spent extra time cuddling with Winston. We would not let him out to go out by himself outside. We would put him on a leash. We would even put a muzzle on him so he couldn't bark, so it would be more uncomfortable for him to bark. And nothing seemed to be controlling the symptoms. So for us and Winston, this is a migraine problem. It's a problem that we've taken a number of steps to address, and we're very, very interested in a solution. Seriously, if anybody out there has a way for me to cure my dog's anxiety, please email me. You can find my email on my website. Okay, so that's the difference between headaches and migraines. And that's what you look for, right? You look for the most painful problems, and the more painful, the better. So I want to turn it over to Justin, who's going to talk about how to find those customers that have a migraine problem that you can solve.
Sounds great. Well, thanks so much, Diana, for calling out the difference between those two problems, because that's really what we're going to dive into here. But just a little bit about me and where I'm coming from. So, again, my blog is customerdevlabs.com, and my specialty is how to practice lean startups. So Diana has laid it out just beautifully, sort of the core principles here of why it is that founders aren't successful, and then I'm going to sort of lay on how we can turn that around and how we can become successful. So in this case, we're going to talk about how do we find those migraines, those problems that are so painful that people are looking for solutions right now. And we're going to start with that incredible analogy that Diana brought up, the founder loop of despair. And I'll tell you that this thing is real because I've been there. And it does end up being very despairful to fall into this loop. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that customer who ends up being the very last step in the founder loop of despair, and to break this cycle and find the founder path to success, we're going to actually put the customer at the very beginning of the process. And we're going to use the customer to derive our idea, a customer to inspire our build and inspire our brand, and the customer is going to be our focus going forward. So we've got this cool name for something that, for the bad side of founding, the founder loop of despair, and we've also got a cool name for how to break the cycle of the founder loop of despair. I call it the focus framework, and focus is not just a way of being that can really help you find your success. Focus is also an acronym, and it's going to sort of outline step by step how to walk through the validation of your idea and avoid that loop of despair. So that acronym, real briefly, we'll go over it in more detail later, but it's about finding your early adopters. This is finding those migraines. Optimizing your channel, which is about finding the marketing that's going to go and attract people who have those migraines. Currency testing. Let's go make sure this is a real migraine that people will pay something valuable for to solve. Utility testing. Let's make sure we can actually resolve the migraine and get rid of it. And then scaling. Let's go build the business that we want to build that can solve migraines for as many people as we want to. All right, so that's the sort of overall overview of the focus framework. Again, we'll get into that in more detail, but you can think of focus as a kind of validation roadmap. Step by step, do this now, go test here, test this way, and then eventually, if you follow the cycle, you will not only avoid pitfalls, but you will find your way to your own startup success. So let's see what this looks like by diving in. In this session, we obviously won't be able to go over all of the components of focus, but we can dive into a component of the very first step, which is finding your early adopters. So in here, I want to discuss a little bit about what exactly an early adopter is, because there's lots of names for these things. You know, is an early adopter just the person that sleeps outside the Apple store waiting for the latest iPhone? Is it someone like Diana who's willing to try, you know, a hypnotist to help her dog not feel so anxious? You know, what is an early adopter? So in my definition, an early adopter is the person who's trying to stop a migraine. So the distinction here, it's not someone with a headache, clearly. It's not someone who even is experiencing a migraine. An early adopter is someone who is actively trying to stop their migraine. Yeah, so someone who has a migraine and just goes to bed, that's not an early adopter. Someone who has a migraine and is out trying to look up, you know, rhino horn, or is doing, you know, parachuting blind to try and get rid of this stuff, like that is our early adopter. So in Diana's case, you know, looking for some help for her puppy, she is an early adopter because she's trying all sorts of crazy stuff to try and alleviate her migraine. So how do we figure out what exactly someone is an early adopter for? Well, we ask them. We're literally going to have a conversation with them where we ask them about the problems that they're currently experiencing, and then we're going to ask them what steps are they taking to try and solve that problem. Yeah, so they actually will tell us. And if we do it the right way, we'll get the information we need without any bias at all. So the step one to starting this process is to figure out who are we going to ask, right? Because most of us have ideas that are really, really cool and could help solve problems for a number of different people. But if we go and target and talk to a number of different people, a wide range of people, we're going to hear a huge range of problems that people are trying to solve, and it's going to get way too confusing and overwhelming. So instead what we want to do is we want to focus our energy on one of the groups of people that we can solve a problem for, solve that problem incredibly well, and then move on to the next group of people that we can solve a problem for. So in this exercise that we're going to do, it's called Scaling Your Segments. We're going to throw out all of the different customer segments that your solution could solve problem for, all the different people that you could help, and then we're going to prioritize that list and pick one that you should be focusing your energy on first. And I say you because I want you to follow along. So as you watch this video, go to customerdevlabs.com/scale. Go there right now, and then you'll be able to fill out a spreadsheet on that page that's just like the one I'm filling out here. And by the time you're done, you'll know exactly where you should be focusing your energy and which segments you should be getting out of the building and talking to. Now, on my end, I'm going to do a little case study on our friends here at Elephant Chat, and I'm going to talk about, you know, all the different segments they have, and then try and help them pick one as if they were watching this video. You know, who knows? Maybe they will watch this video, and we'll see Elephant Chat again. Okay, so hopefully you've got your scale up there on your side, and I'm going to dive in here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write down a group of segments. So I've just chosen 4 here. You can write down as many as you want on your end. So write down different groups of people that you could potentially sell your product to, or I should say solve a problem for. And in this case, I'm going to call out, it's a communication device for couples. So I'm going to call a couple segments who come to mind that might be really amenable to having their problem solved, the communication problem solved. First is newlyweds. That makes sense. They're new with this stuff. Maybe they want some help. They're excited about their marriage. They want to go out and do best foot forward. We've also got like parents of newlyweds, right? So this is a different segment. This is a group of people who know how hard it is to have a really good marriage, and they want the best for their kids. So maybe they'll buy this as a gift. We've got marriage counselors. Of course, it's these people's job to help people through their communication issues. So maybe they would like to recommend the product or maybe sell the product to their clients. And then finally, there's couples and counseling, and this group of people already, they already acknowledge that they have a problem, and they are taking some steps to try and solve it. So maybe they could be a group of people that we start our conversations with. But let's find out. So the way that we're going to prioritize these is based on 5 different criteria. The first, the S in scale, is size. So you're simply going to write down how large is this segment, and I call it T-shirt sizing because we're just going to write down small, medium, and large. So if it's large, if it's a big group, go ahead and put a 3 in the column for this segment. If it's medium, put a 2, and if it's small, put a 1. So you do that for your segments. My segments, I'm going to say newlyweds. Well, there's a ton of people getting married every year, so that feels large. And you notice I'm saying that feels large. I'm not going out and doing a Google search here. This isn't about getting it perfect or even necessarily getting it right, because we won't get it right. What we're doing now is we're just trying to pick one of these 4 segments to go focus on based on essentially a gut feel. Because again, it's really important to get out of the building and focus on one of these segments, and it's more important that we get out and focus than it is that we get out and get it perfect. So that's what we're trying to do here. Just get something on paper and go out and try and talk to one group at a time. Parents of newlyweds, again, large. Marriage counselors, that feels a little smaller. Yeah, there's plenty of people out there, but it's definitely smaller than newlyweds, in my opinion. And then couples and counseling, yeah, that feels probably about a medium as well. All right. So moving on to the next column here, the C stands for currency. Now, currency, it can mean actual money, like how much money these people have, or it can mean, how much of the thing that you need to be successful does this person have? All right. So sometimes it isn't currency. Like for example, a nonprofit. If a nonprofit wants to help serve a community, one of the things that they'll be looking for in terms of currency is willingness to engage with that nonprofit. Let's say it's some sort of mentoring program, right? What you're looking for here in terms of currency is the ability to have someone be mentored. Does the family want a mentor? Does the child, is the family willing to drive the child to the mentor? Is the child willing to be engaged with the mentor? That's the kind of currency you need to be successful. So in this case, the currency that we're measuring is actual currency. And what you're going to do is write down a 3 if they have a lot of the thing that you're looking for, a 2 if it's some, and 1 if it's a little. All right, for my segments, I'm going to say the newlyweds, they don't have a lot of money. They've just gotten married. They've blown a lot of their money on their wedding, so they don't have a lot of disposable income to throw at a product like this. Parents of newlyweds, now they're a little more established, so they're a little older. They've maybe saved up for the wedding. They knew it was going to happen. And they don't have a lot of it because they did just throw a bunch of money onto the wedding, but they're used to giving away gifts. So anyway, I'm going to put them as a 2. Now, marriage counselors, they're interesting because the thing that I'm looking for is money. And marriage counselors, well, they've got money, but they don't actually spend their money on products. Yeah, there aren't marriage counselors out there, at least not good ones, who go and buy up a bunch of products and then resell them to their clients, right? They may recommend a particular product to their clients, but the currency I'm looking for, the cash, is not something that they are going to be giving me in abundance. So I'm actually going to put them as a little currency. Because like I said, I'm looking for cash, and what they would give me is basically a recommendation or referral, and I can't take that to the bank. So they may become my channel, but I don't think they're necessarily my customer segment. On the other hand, couples and counseling, I'm going to say they have a lot of currency because not only are they already spending money, they're spending money to solve this problem in particular. So I'm going to say they have a lot. All right. For the A column, we're going to measure our access to these customers. Yeah? And by access, I mean if the product was ready today, done, how quickly could you go out and get that currency? And what we're trying to represent here is whether you have any kind of special connections with an industry or a group of people. Maybe you've worked with a group of people for a long time, and so you could go and serve those customers really, really quickly based on your network connections. So if you could get your currency from that segment in days, go ahead and put a 3 in the column. If it's weeks, put a 2, and if it's months, put a 1. So for my segments, newlyweds, I don't know anything about newlyweds. I don't know necessarily how to find them. I know you can, right? They got home shows or newlywed conferences or something like that. I'm sure I can find some way to find these people, but it's going to take me months to actually figure out those channels, put my product in front of them, and then get their currency. Parents of newlyweds are the same thing. Marriage counselors, now here, there's a slight difference again because my partner is a therapist. She's a psychologist, and she knows marriage counselors. So that means that I could leverage her network, and maybe within a couple weeks I could actually sell a product to them. So I'm going to put a 2 there, and then couples and counseling, same thing. I don't have direct connection to them, so I'm going to call it a month. Now, it's okay if all of your segments have months, if you rated them all 1s. Perfectly normal. What we're trying to do is just represent whether or not you've got any distinct or unfair advantage with one segment or another. Okay, moving on to the L column, and this is one of my favorites because this L column represents love. This is all about how much you love a particular customer segment. And what we're trying to capture here is there one segment that you are just crazy passionate about helping? And if so, we're going to find that out. Also, is there a segment that you were crazy unpassionate about helping that you would really rather not work with? So here you're going to put a 3 if it's a lot of love, 2 if it's some love, and 1 if there's not a lot of love at all. Now, what will be interesting about my numbers is that I'm answering this from my perspective, but this is not my idea, not my product segment. So I'm basically judging someone else's ideas, which means that it's not shocking that I have really low score for love. So I'll just say that hopefully your scores are a little bit higher than mine, 1, 1, 2, 1, because you are passionate about the space. If it's not, then maybe go back and think about some other segments that you are passionate about helping, because this will be a lot more fun and enjoyable if you do have a lot of love for your customers. All right, so 1 for newlyweds, 1 for parents. Counselors I put a little higher because they are a little bit like people that I'm passionate about helping, which is people who are starting companies. So I'll give them a 2, and then couples and counseling it's a 1. All right, finally, the E in scale represents early adopters. And what this is an indication of how much data you have that this group of people is actively trying to solve the problem now. All right, so this one's less of a guess than the other ones. This one is how much data do you have right now? How much data have you gone out and collected that tells you, yes, this person is actively trying to solve a problem right now? If it's a lot of data, it's a 3, some data 2, no data 1. So in my case, newlyweds trying to solve communication problems. Now, I can guess that, yeah, there probably are some out there that are trying to solve communication problems. But how much data do I have? Well, I've got none because I haven't actually gone out and done the conversations with my customers. So it's a 1. Parents of newlyweds, it's a 1 as well. Marriage counselors. Now, this case, because my partner is a psychologist, I know that the psychologists that she works with are often looking for tools and resources to recommend to their patients. So I do have some data that is happening, although I don't have data about marriage counselors in particular. Couples and counseling. Now here, this one's really cool because by definition, if I can find a couple in counseling, they are an early adopter, right? This is someone who recognizes that they have a problem and they are actively taking steps to try and solve it. So that means that they are, in inherent nature, an early adopter. Okay, so we've got all the numbers filled out. I've got mine filled out. You've got yours. Yours are probably already been automatically calculated for you, so I'm just going to show you what mine are here and let you know that the total score, we actually multiply these as opposed to adding them. And the reason why we do that, imagine if we had a 3 and a 1, kind of like I have for the newlyweds in the size and currency column. If we had a 3 and a 1 and we had a 2 and a 2, what we're looking for is to avoid the 1s. So by adding up a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and a 2, we would get the same score. But by multiplying them together, we recognize that 2 2s is more valuable than a 3 and a 1. So here's the total scores for mine. Slight typo. Marriage counselor should actually be 16. But what you get out of the end of this this process is a clear distinction of which of these segments is the largest segment that has the most currency, that I have the quickest access to, that I happen to love the most, and I've got the most data that they are early adopters. So in this case, I should be starting my adventure with couples in counseling. What's also great about this process is that I can go down here, and if there's something gets invalidated, like it turns out that these people, either they don't exist, they don't have real problems, I know exactly who to pivot to next. In this case, I would pivot to the marriage counselors. I talk to them about their problems. So hopefully you've done yours, and now you have a good sense of who you should be starting your conversations with. And now we're going to talk about, well, what do you do next? Now that you know who you're going to talk to, what comes next? So Diana and I, what we're going to do is we're going to sort of ping-pong back and forth and break down how we would coach them through the focus framework, the Elephant Chat team, about the next steps after they've done the scaling process. So Diana, you ready to make this happen?
I'm ready.
Nice. Let's get Elephant Chat back on the market. So we've just figured out that Elephant Chat should go and talk to the couples in counseling. What would you recommend that they do in order to find those people and have a conversation with them?
Well, figure out what kinds of things couples in counseling do, maybe in addition to going to counseling. So are they looking at certain blogs online that are dedicated to marital arguments? Are they subscribing to certain magazines? Just basically, what kinds of habits do they have in common in addition to being in counseling?
Awesome. I love it. Yep. And so that's exactly where we go and look to see if we can have conversations with them. So if they're going to a blog, we can go reach out to that blogger and ask, hey, this is a good one. Go and find the people who are commenting on the blog and then reach out to them, right? That's a great way to go.
Have a problem.
Exactly, right? They're not only reading the blog, they're asking questions about it. That's spot on. If someone's following a blog on Twitter, you can tweet with them. And this is exactly what you want to do in terms of finding people, and then you can strike up a conversation with them. We'll tell you a little bit more about how to actually have that conversation a little bit later, but that's spot on. Okay, so we've gone out, we've had the conversation with those folks. Now let's talk about optimizing your channel. And we covered this a little bit already in terms of how to find them. But any other ideas, Diana, about, okay, let's say we've confirmed there is a problem, where else we would go to look for a sort of a consistent channel of these folks?
Yeah, well, once I figure out what kinds of things they have in common, I try to figure out how I can get in touch with them. So maybe all couples who have issues and are going to a counselor watch a specific television show. Maybe that's one of the things that they have in common. So
Dr. Phil, yo.
Maybe it's Dr. Phil. So maybe I find a way to get at that group of people. So if it's a blogger, then I see if I can, I try to do something to see if I can get a reaction from those people. Maybe it's Facebook ads. Maybe it's, an ad on a blog. Maybe it's you try an ad on the Dr. Phil show. But you're basically trying to figure out not just what they have in common, but what's the best way to get those people's attention to listen to you.
Absolutely. Spot on. I love it. I mean, that's such great. I love what you said about the Facebook ads because, with Facebook ads, these things are so crazy powerful. You can go on Facebook and say, I want you to show this ad to people who like the Dr. Phil show and have read Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can
and
filter
now
based on how many years somebody has been married on Facebook.
Right? So if we want to target our newlyweds, that's spot on, right? And maybe we can do a little research to figure out when couples hit that, their most rough patch, 7-year itch kind of thing. So yeah, that's
yeah, year 1 and year 7, I think.
those are the itchiest patches. All right, so now we found the whole point of this exercise is to find a consistent channel where we can reach out to and run experiments with our customers to figure out, do we understand their problem right, and will our solution help them resolve their problem? So once we found that consistent channel of customers, now it's time to do currency testing. And by currency testing, we mean, will you actually put real, hard, valuable currency on the line in exchange for a promise of a solution? So this is before we've built anything. We're going to go and see if they will give us, if this problem is so painful that they will give us something valuable for it. So what comes to mind, Diana, in terms of currency that we could ask for to test the Elephant Chat product?
Well, look, the folks at Elephant Chat, they spent $100,000 ordering all these products, but at the end of the day, what they have is an online website with a picture of it, and then you order based off the picture. So why couldn't they put up a website with a picture of it without actually spending money on all that inventory, or a picture of something to see if people would order it? I mean, people, all that stuff that they did in the middle and all the problems that they had may not have been necessary if they figured out that nobody was ordering the thing that they were selling, that they needed to change it in some way. So that's what I would do. I would say, what's the end thing that you're planning on doing, and is there a smaller version of that you could do right now?
Absolutely. That's such a cool idea. This, if we're only going to put up a picture anyway, why don't we just make one and show a picture of that? It's just some guy hacking around at the makerspace and creating one of these things, and then he's done with one. Go take a picture of that and then call it good.
I've seen people sell other people's products. They have an idea for something, and then they find a product like that on Amazon, and then they just use that picture. Because all you're trying to figure out is, are you targeting the right people, and do you have the right channels to target those people, and is your message resonating with them? So that's the value that you're trying to get out of this process.
Right, absolutely. Now, there are some intricacies in currency testing that we should just sort of call out. You definitely don't want to, there's no lying to the customer. We never do that. We never steal from them. We never take their money in exchange for providing them nothing. So, again, we don't have time to go over this in details, but there are ways to do currency testing to really validate that people will pay money for something without being disingenuous and without lying to them, and treating them with the utmost respect.
Absolutely. Integrity is of the highest importance in everything, and so you have to make sure that if you interact with any human being, that they leave you better than they met you.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, why the heck would we be doing this, right? This is about serving people and solving their problems. Cool. Okay, so let's say that we've gone and we've put together our crowdfunding campaign based off of actual channel testing and problem interviews, and it looks like it's working. People are pre-ordering this thing. Now we're going to move on to utility testing, and this is where we actually build a thing. But it might not be the thing that you think. What we're going to build here is a crazy simplified version of the thing, sometimes known as an MVP, to go and test, can we actually solve these communication issues? So only after we've gone through identifying the problem, the channel, ensuring that people will give us something valuable to get the thing, do we start building something. So Diana, what comes to mind in terms of a very simple version of this product that we might be able to build?
Yeah, so anybody who's bought anything off of late-night infomercials knows that it's one thing to buy something and expect that it works, and it's another thing for it to do what it promised. So when I think of utility testing, it's what is the simplest version that I could come up with. And with Elephant Chat, it's easy. You can use any stuffed animal, a large object. If you see this object, then I want to talk to you about something. So it doesn't really matter what it looks like, as long as there's an object that communicates, you both agreed communicates that something's the matter. And then you measure, does that actually improve your communication and reduce fights?
Spot on. I love it. It's so true, right? We don't even need a box for the thing. Right? We just need, pull it out of the drawer if there's a problem to talk about, and put it back in the drawer if there's not a problem to talk about. So yeah, their product, it does look, I'll say it looks extremely interesting, right? It's got this like cool outer shell and plexiglass, but there was no need to go and design that thing and build that thing until we'd walk through all of these steps, including utility testing. All right, so last step, once we've proven that, hey, we can actually solve problems, now it's time to start scaling. Now it's time to do all sorts of fun things like, let's go test a different channel, a secondary channel. We've been focusing on one now, let's go get our second channel. Let's start scaling up our solution. So maybe it's not, it doesn't make sense for us to go and hand deliver a little stuffed elephant to each of our customers. So now we'll start scaling up our solution by building more of these things and mailing them out. And then we start scaling up additional customer segments. So now we can move from our first customer segment, which is couples and counseling, and now maybe we'll also start interacting with marriage counselors. So in terms of scaling, any ideas that come to mind, Diana, for things they would do to scale up their operation?
Yeah, I mean, once you figure out who's interested in your product, how to get their attention, how to create something that they want to buy, and that you've created something that actually works, now's the time when you actually go and start figuring out manufacturing and, just improving, like scaling up, just like you said, the number of people that you get a hold of to make sure that your numbers stick. So if I did a small experiment and 100 people came to my website and out of them 25 bought something, can I do that again with 1,000 people going to my website? Do those numbers hold true? And if they do, then I have excellent evidence that I should put as many resources behind building this thing as possible.
Yeah, at that point you've got a money machine, right? So you put money in, you get more money out. Yeah. Well, that's it. So that's the path to finding product market fit and finding, your way out of the loop of despair. So just to summarize, this is that loop of despair that Diana covered so beautifully, and the thing that we want to avoid. And the way to avoid it is this focus framework, which will walk you step by step on how to do your validation. We talked about how to scale your customer segments, so how to figure out which of these customer segments you should start and focus your energy on first. And then for more information, because we weren't able to cover all of the things that we wanted to during this session, Diane and I have actually put together a free customer interviewing course that's available at customerdevlabs.com/HP. And that'll be available for at least the rest of 2015. So go there and check it out. And inside there, we'll talk to you about how to ask for an interview, how to actually have a conversation with someone so they'll have a conversation with you. What you should ask, that should be you should ask during the interview. So here's a list of questions that you can ask someone to elicit whether or not they have a migraine and whether they're trying to solve it. 21 rules of customer interviews, 21 things that you should do during a customer interview to get the most benefit out of your time together. And then finally, how to analyze your interviews. Once you've completed your interviews, how do you go extract the migraines from there? So if you'd like that course, I highly recommend it. It'll walk you step by step through how to do each of these things, and it's at customerdevlabs.com/HP. And with that, I just want to mention Diana Kander's book, All In Startup, is just an incredible story that really takes the founder loop of despair and highlights it in a magnificent way, in using all of the fun of poker, why it's called All In Startup, with a douse of sexual tension that makes it just an incredible read. So if you'd like some a new perspective on how to think about the founder journey, explicitly what we want to avoid doing and where Lean Startup can be helpful, definitely check out Diana's book.
And the scaling tool that Justin covered is just scratching of just a teeny tiny portion of the number of tools that are available through his focus framework. It's a series of 5 different books filled with different exercises you can do to find product market fit, and I can't recommend this enough. Just have so much respect for all the exercises that I've seen from those books, and you can sign up for early access to those materials on customerdevlabs.com. So I can't recommend that enough.
Well, that's very gracious of you, Diana. I can't really hold a flame to you though, because yours is a New York Times bestseller, and mine's still in pre-order. So.
Because your exercises lack all that sexual tension. That's really the
It's true. Yeah, I should definitely find a way to incorporate
if you're
sexual
not done
tension.
writing the book, I highly recommend you may think about adding that.
I'll get right on that. Awesome. Well, this has been our session on understanding your customers' problems. Yeah, please let us know. You can find both of our email addresses on our website, and please let us know if you have any questions at all.